The Arctic anomaly. The howling wind carried sheets of snow across the endless white expanse, but Dr. Marcus Webb barely noticed the cold anymore. 3 days of camping on the Arctic ice shelf had numbed more than just his fingers. His entire team was exhausted, but none of them could sleep. Not since the signal started. Still reading the same pattern, Marcus. Dr. Nora Vasquez pressed her headphones tighter against her ears, her breath forming clouds in the equipment tent. The geophysicist's dark eyes reflected the glow of her monitors, screens filled with waveforms that made no sense. Whatever's down there, it's not natural. This is too regular, too deliberate. Marcus leaned over her shoulder, studying the rhythmic pulses. His weathered face, lined from years of field work, creased with concentration. At 42, he'd spent half his life chasing anomalies that others dismissed as instrument errors. This time felt different. This time felt real. Could it be an old submarine? Lieutenant James Holloway stood near the tent entrance, his military-issue parka making him look twice his actual size. The young officer had been assigned to escort the civilian research team, but even his training hadn't prepared him for this. Maybe Russian from the Cold War? No submarine gives off quantum signatures, Lieutenant. Nora pulled up another screen, showing electromagnetic readings that spiked in impossible patterns. This is something else entirely. Something that shouldn't exist. The drilling had begun at dawn. Massive hydraulic rigs bit into ancient ice, pulling up cores that dated back thousands of years. With each meter they descended, the signals grew stronger, more insistent. Marcus felt his heart racing as the drill suddenly lurched, hitting something solid at 70 meters depth. "We've got contact," shouted Devin Cross, their tech specialist, his young face flushed with excitement despite the sub-zero temperature. The corporal had volunteered for this assignment, hungry for adventure beyond his usual desk work at the base. And it's big. Really big. They worked through the afternoon, carefully expanding the hole, using thermal lances to melt away the ice. Marcus was the first to see it, a curve of metallic surface that gleamed dully under their floodlights. His breath caught. The metal was smooth, almost organic in appearance, covered in markings that looked like no writing system ever documented. "My God," Nora whispered, kneeling at the edge of the pit. She reached down with a gloved hand, not quite touching the surface. "Marcus, this can't be human-made. Look at the composition readings. These alloys don't exist in nature." As night fell, they excavated further, revealing more of the massive structure. It was clearly a vessel of some kind, streamlined and elegant, despite the terrible damage scarred across its hull. One entire section was torn open, metal twisted outward, as if something had exploded from within. James checked his rifle nervously. "Sir, shouldn't we report this before going any further?" Marcus shook his head, unable to tear his eyes from the discovery. "If we report this now, they'll shut us down. Military, corporations, governments, they'll all want a piece of this. We need to know what we're dealing with first." That night, as the team huddled in their tents, the sound came. A deep, resonant thud from beneath the ice, followed by a low vibration that seemed to pulse through the frozen ground. Marcus sat upright in his sleeping bag, his pulse hammering. It came again, not the random creak of settling ice, but something purposeful, rhythmic, like a heartbeat. Nora appeared at his tent entrance, her face pale in the lamplight. "You heard it too?" He nodded slowly. "Whatever's in that ship, Nora, I don't think it's dead." First contact. The cutting torches screamed against the alien metal, throwing orange sparks into the Arctic dawn. Marcus watched as Devin guided the plasma cutter along the torn section of hull, widening the gap enough for a person to slip through. Every instinct told him to stop, to wait for proper authorization, but curiosity burned hotter than caution. "Opening's ready, Dr. Webb." Devin stepped back, his face sheened with sweat despite the cold. The young corporal's hands trembled slightly as he set down the equipment. Marcus clicked on his headlamp and approached the dark opening. The air that drifted out was strange, cold, but with an odd metallic taste that made his tongue tingle. Behind him, Nora checked her atmospheric sensors. "Breathable, surprisingly," she reported, though her voice carried doubt. "Oxygen, nitrogen, trace elements. But there's something else I can't identify." James went first, rifle raised, moving with military precision. Marcus followed, then Nora and Devin. Inside, the corridor stretched into darkness, walls lined with panels that seemed to shimmer with faint bioluminescence. Frost covered everything like crystalline veins, but underneath Marcus could see the ship was remarkably preserved. "These symbols, Nora breathed, running her gloved fingers near the wall markings. They're mathematical. Look, this sequence represents prime numbers, but the notation is completely alien. They moved deeper, boots crunching on ice-covered flooring. The ship's interior was a maze of passages, some blocked by collapsed sections, others intact but filled with equipment they couldn't begin to understand. Strange pods lined one chamber, their surfaces opaque and dark. Storage containers, Devon suggested, his voice echoing strangely in the confined space. Marcus shook his head. I don't think so. These look more like... He paused, directing his light at one of the pods. Through the frosted surface he could make out a vague shape. Something humanoid. Like sleeper chambers, Nora gasped, pressing closer. Stasis pods. Marcus, if the technology still works, if any of them survived. A sudden hum filled the air, low and vibrating through their bones. The pods began to glow with soft blue light, panels beside them flickering to life after centuries of darkness. The team stumbled backward as one pod in the center of the chamber brightened intensely. What did we do? James raised his rifle, aiming at the pod. Nothing. We didn't touch anything. Devon's voice cracked with panic. The pod hissed, releasing vapor that billowed out in great clouds. Through the mist, Marcus saw the transparent lid sliding open. His heart hammered as a figure sat up slowly, gracefully, despite what must have been an impossibly long sleep. She was humanoid, but clearly not human. Her skin held a faint iridescent quality, like pearl, and her features were delicate yet distinctly alien. Eyes slightly larger, cheekbones higher, ears tapering to subtle points. Long silver hair fell past her shoulders, and as she turned her head, those large eyes locked onto Marcus. They were violet, deep and intelligent, filled with confusion and fear. She spoke, her voice melodic but the words incomprehensible. When no one responded, she tried again in a different language, then another. Her breathing quickened, panic rising as she looked around at the frozen chamber, at her companions still sealed in darkened pods. Easy, Marcus said softly, raising his hands to show he meant no harm. We're not going to hurt you. She stared at him, then at the others. Her eyes swept over James's rifle, and she flinched, pressing back against the pod. She tried to stand but stumbled, her legs weak from disuse. Marcus moved instinctively to help her, catching her arm gently. The moment they touched, something passed between them, a spark of recognition, of connection. She looked into his eyes, searching, and he saw intelligence there, and loss, and desperate hope. My name is Marcus, he said slowly, pointing to himself. Then he pointed to her, making it a question. She understood the gesture. Her lips moved, forming sounds that were beautiful and strange. Saphira, she whispered, the word hanging in the cold air between them. Nora stepped forward carefully, pulling out a tablet. We need to establish communication. If I can record her language patterns. Saphira's attention shifted to Nora, then to the tablet. Her expression changed, showing recognition. She reached out tentatively, and when Nora offered the device, Saphira's fingers moved across it with surprising familiarity. Within moments, she had accessed the operating system, her face showing both wonder and sadness. She understands technology, Devon whispered in awe. Saphira looked back at Marcus, her violet eyes brimming with tears. She gestured to the darkened pods, to her crew who would never wake, and the sound she made was unmistakably grief. It was a sound that transcended language, species, worlds. Marcus squeezed her hand gently. Whatever had happened, wherever she had come from, she was alone now. And somehow he knew his life had just changed forever. Secrets revealed, Doctor. Helen Price arrived with the second team 3 days later, her reputation as the world's leading xenolinguist preceding her. The silver-haired woman approached Saphira with academic fascination tempered by genuine compassion, carrying a modified neural interface that she'd spent 72 hours assembling. This should allow direct language mapping, Helen explained, adjusting the delicate headset, if she permits it. Saphira sat on a cot in the heated research tent they'd erected, wrapped in thermal blankets that made her look small and vulnerable. She watched the device warily but nodded when Marcus gave her an encouraging smile. Over the past 3 days, they'd developed a basic communication through gestures and simple words, but more importantly, they'd built trust. The interface hummed to life. Saphira's eyes widened, then closed as information flooded her mind. When she opened them again and spoke, her words came out in accented but clear English. Thank you. Her voice caught with emotion. So long. I was alone so long in the darkness. Nora leaned forward eagerly. How long? When did your ship crash? Zafira's luminous eyes grew distant. Your calendar. I do not know precisely. The ship's chronometer failed during the storm. But from your ice samples, from the depth we were buried. She paused, struggling with the reality. Perhaps 800 of your years. Maybe more. Marcus felt his chest tighten. 8 centuries, sleeping while the world turned above her. My world was dying. Zafira continued, her voice soft but steady. Our star grew unstable. We built ships, sent out as many as we could to find new homes. 12 ships, 12 chances for our people to survive. She looked at the frozen walls surrounding them. I do not know if any others made it. What happened to your ship? James asked from his position by the door. A cosmic storm. We tried to avoid it, but the navigation systems failed. The energy surge was catastrophic. Zafira's hands trembled as she spoke. The hull was breached. The crew, they fought to save the ship, to save me. Captain Dravik, he was my mentor, She struggled for the word. My chosen family. He put me in the emergency stasis pod before the life support failed completely. I tried to stop him, but he sealed the chamber. I watched through the glass as he and the others. Her voice broke, and tears slipped down her cheeks. Marcus moved without thinking, sitting beside her and putting his arm around her shoulders. She leaned into him, and he felt her shaking with suppressed sobs. They were heroes, Marcus said quietly. They saved you. That means something. But for what? Zafira looked up at him, her violet eyes meeting his brown ones. I wake alone on an alien world, my people gone, my purpose lost. Helen cleared her throat gently. Not entirely lost. Your ship's reactor, it's still partially functional. We've detected a power source in the engineering section. Zafira straightened, professional interest cutting through her grief. The quantum core. It was designed to last millennia. If it survived, then perhaps... She stood, suddenly energized. I need to see it. The technology, the knowledge stored in the ship's computers, if any of it survived, it could help your people. It was why we voyaged, to share, to learn, to find kinship among the stars. Over the following days, Zafira guided them through the ship, explaining systems that seemed like magic. She spoke of her people's philosophy, a culture built on curiosity, exploration, and the belief that knowledge should be freely shared. She showed them holographic records of her world, crystal cities beneath twin moons, art and music that brought tears to even James's stoic eyes. But it was the quiet moments that Marcus treasured most. Late one evening, after the others had retired, he found Zafira standing outside the ship, staring up at the aurora borealis dancing across the Arctic sky. On my world, we had lights like these, she said as he approached. But they were golden, not green. My mother used to say they were the spirits of ancestors, dancing to welcome each new night. That's beautiful, Marcus said. Standing beside her, she turned to him, and in her eyes he saw not just an alien survivor, but a woman, lonely, frightened, yet brave beyond measure. Marcus, I am afraid. Your world is so different, and I do not know if I belong here. He took her hand, her skin cool and smooth against his. You belong wherever you choose to be, and for what it's worth, I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you survived. Zafira squeezed his fingers, and something passed between them in the silence. Understanding, connection, the first tender shoots of something deeper. I am glad also, she whispered. Perhaps the universe is not so cruel after all, to give me this second chance. To give me you. The aurora blazed above them, painting the ice in shades of emerald and jade, as two souls from different worlds found warmth in each other's presence. Hearts across stars, Colonel Patricia Morse arrived by military transport, her sharp features and crisply pressed uniform announcing her intentions before she spoke a word. She surveyed the camp with calculating eyes, lingering on the exposed section of alien ship before turning to Marcus. Dr. Webb, I'm here to assume command of this operation. The Pentagon has classified this discovery as a matter of national security. Marcus felt his jaw tighten. Colonel, this is a scientific expedition on international ice. You have no jurisdiction. I have every jurisdiction when it comes to potential threats. Patricia's gaze shifted to the research tent where Zafira was. Working with Helen. I've been briefed on your guest. She'll need to be transferred to a secure facility for proper evaluation. She's not a threat. Nora stepped forward, her small frame vibrating with anger. She's a refugee, a survivor. She's been helping us understand technology that could revolutionize everything from energy to medicine, which is precisely why she needs to be secured. Patricia's tone allowed no argument. We leave at dawn. That night the camp was tense. Marcus found Zafira in the ship's engineering section, her hands moving over the quantum core's interface with practiced grace. The reactor pulsed with soft blue light, responding to her touch like something alive. I can hear them arguing, she said without turning. They want to take me, study me like a specimen. I won't let that happen. Marcus moved closer, watching her work. Nora's contacting the UN, the International Science Council. You have rights. Do I? Zafira finally looked at him and he saw fear in her eyes. I am alone here, Marcus. One being against your entire world. If they decide I am a resource to be exploited, what can I do? He took her hands, stilling them. You're not alone. I promise you that. She searched his face, then pulled him closer, her forehead resting against his. Why? Why do you care so much for someone not even of your species? Because I see you, Marcus whispered. Not an alien, not a discovery. You, Zafira, who mourns her lost crew, who shares knowledge freely because it's what her people valued, who stands beneath Earth's aurora and sees beauty instead of strangeness. He paused, his heart thundering, because somewhere along the way I started falling for you. Her breath caught. For a moment, neither moved. Then Zafira closed the distance between them, her lips meeting his in a kiss that was tentative at first, then deepening with shared longing. She tasted like starlight and ozone, and Marcus felt the universe shift around them. When they finally pulled apart, Zafira's eyes shimmered with tears. On my world, we have a saying, the heart recognizes kin across any distance. I thought I understood it before, but now... She touched his face gently. Marcus, I could repair the ship. The quantum core has enough power. I could activate the stasis pods, try to revive my crew, or I could... Her voice wavered. I could fly away, find another world where I might fit better. Is that what you want? Marcus asked, though the question felt like knives in his chest. No. The word came out fierce, certain. I want to stay. I want to share my people's legacy with yours. I want to see where this, she gestured between them, leads. But I need to know it is truly possible, that I can have a life here, not as a prisoner or a curiosity, but as someone free to choose. Marcus pulled her close again, holding her as if he could shield her from the world's harsh realities. Then we'll fight for that. Together. They emerged from the ship to find the aurora borealis blazing in unprecedented brilliance, curtains of light dancing in greens and purples and golds. Zafira gasped, gripping Marcus's hand. Those colors. Golden light. Like my homeworld. It is a sign, Marcus. It must be. He wrapped his arms around her from behind, and they stood together beneath the alien sky that was becoming hers, feeling the weight of impossible love settling over them like starlight. In the distance, they could hear raised voices from the camp, Nora and James arguing with Patricia. But here, in this moment, there were only two hearts learning to beat as one. Zafira turned in his arms, and they kissed again beneath the dancing lights, while the ancient ship hummed behind them and the ice whispered secrets of the ages. Whatever tomorrow brought, they had this. A moment of perfect understanding between two souls the universe had brought together against all odds. Stay with me, Marcus whispered against her lips. Always, Zafira promised, and sealed it with another kiss that tasted of hope and home and the beginning of something beautiful. A New Dawn ambassador, Ruth Chen, arrived with representatives from 12 nations, her diplomatic credentials finally cutting through the military red tape. The older woman surveyed the tense standoff between Patricia's soldiers and the scientists with the weary patience of someone who'd spent decades negotiating international incidents. Colonel Morse, stand down, Ruth ordered crisply. As of 2 hours ago, this site has been declared an international heritage zone under emergency UN mandate. The alien visitor, she emphasized the word, has been granted provisional refugee status pending full council review. Patricia's jaw clenched, but she saluted stiffly. Yes, ma'am. Zafira emerged from the research tent with Marcus, her posture regal despite her nervousness. Over the past week, she'd been teaching herself human body language, trying to appear less foreign. But as Ruth approached, the ambassador smiled warmly. Ms. Zafira, I apologize for the chaos. Your presence here raises unprecedented questions, but we'd like to handle this properly. Ruth gestured to the delegation behind her. We have scientists, diplomats, ethicists, people who want to help, not exploit. I appreciate this, Zafira said carefully. I have much to share, but I will not be treated as property or weapon. I am a person, even if different from you. Dr. Heinrich Miller, a renowned physicist from the German delegation, stepped forward eagerly. The quantum reactor technology you've described could solve our energy crisis. If you'd be willing to help us understand— I am willing, Zafira interrupted gently. But slowly, carefully. Your world is not ready for some knowledge. It must be earned through wisdom, not rushed because of desperation. She looked at Marcus, drawing strength from his presence. I watched my world die because we grew too fast, took too much from our star. I will not help Earth make the same mistakes. The statement hung in the cold air, sobering the assembled crowd. Finally, Ruth nodded. Fair enough. Then perhaps we start smaller. You help us understand what we're ready for, and in return, we offer you sanctuary, citizenship, a place in our world. And freedom? Zafira asked quietly. Freedom to choose where I live, who I befriend, who I— She glanced at Marcus, color rising in her cheeks. Ruth's lips quirked in understanding. Yes, freedom to build whatever life you choose. The negotiations took 3 days. Zafira demonstrated her knowledge, presenting holographic archives from her ship's computers that showed advanced medical techniques, sustainable energy concepts, and agricultural methods that could revolutionize farming. She answered questions with patience, but always with careful boundaries. Marcus watched her handle world leaders and scientists with equal grace and felt his admiration deepening into something profound. She was brilliant, brave, and kind, and somehow, impossibly, she'd chosen him. On the 4th night, after the diplomats had finally departed, Zafira found Marcus standing by the ship. They want me to come to Geneva, she said, to establish a formal knowledge exchange program. They've offered me a position as a cultural liaison, an advisor. She paused. They said I could choose my own team. Marcus turned to face her, his heart in his throat. That's incredible, Zafira. You'll change everything. Only if you come with me. She stepped closer, taking his hands. I cannot do this alone, Marcus. I need someone I trust. Someone who sees me as more than walking library of alien secrets. Her violet eyes searched his. I need you. I'm a field scientist, he said weakly. I wouldn't know the first thing about diplomacy or— She silenced him with a kiss, deep and full of promise. When she pulled back, she was smiling. Then you will learn as I am learning. Together, yes? Yes, Marcus breathed, pulling her close again. Always yes. 6 months later, Marcus stood in the observation lounge of the International Xenological Research Facility overlooking Lake Geneva, watching Zafira present her latest findings to an audience of rapt scientists. She moved with confidence now, her accented English charming rather than hindering her. She'd adapted human clothing. She favored deep blues that complemented her iridescent skin, but kept her long silver hair as a reminder of her origins. Nora appeared beside him, grinning. She's amazing. Did you see the look on Dr. Miller's face when she explained the quantum entanglement principles? I thought he was going to cry. She is amazing, Marcus agreed softly. And you're disgustingly in love, Nora teased. When are you going to make it official? Before Marcus could answer, Zafira concluded her presentation and caught his eye across the room. The smile she gave him was radiant, meant only for him. She excused herself from the gathering scientists and crossed to where he stood. Ready for dinner? She asked, slipping her hand into his naturally. They walked along the lake as the sun set, painting the water in golds and pinks. Zafira leaned against Marcus, and he wrapped his arm around her waist, marveling at how natural it all felt. Do you ever regret staying? He asked quietly. Wonder what might have been if you'd left, found others of your kind. Zafira stopped walking and turned to face him, her hands framing his face. Every choice has sacrifices, Marcus. But this was not sacrifice. This was choice. The best choice I could have made. She kissed him softly. You gave me a home when I had none. You saw me when I felt invisible. How could I regret that? Marcus pulled a small box from his pocket, his hands trembling slightly. I know your people had different customs, and maybe this is too human, too presumptuous, but Yes, Zafira interrupted, laughing and crying at once. Whatever you are asking, yes. He opened the box, revealing a simple ring set with a stone that matched her violet eyes. Marry me. Build this impossible, beautiful life with me. She kissed him then, deep and long and full of joy, while the sun set over Geneva and the stars began to emerge above them. When they finally parted, both breathless and grinning, Zafira held out her hand for the ring. On my world, she said as Marcus slipped it onto her finger. We believed the stars guided us to our destined companions. I thought I had lost that guidance when I lost my world. She looked up at the emerging stars, then back at Marcus. But perhaps the stars were guiding me here all along, to you, to home. They stood together on the lake shore as night deepened. Two beings from different worlds who'd found in each other something the universe itself had conspired to create. Love that transcended species, planets, and time itself. Above them, the stars blazed eternal, and somewhere in that vast darkness, perhaps other ships were flying, other survivors searching. But here, now, beneath Earth's gentle sky, Marcus and Zafira had everything they needed. They had each other, and that was enough to change two worlds forever.